So welcome everybody to the Sweet Spot Global Leadership Summit, where we are speaking all week about how visionary leaders and their organizations can thrive from the inside out. And I'm super excited to bring back the wonderful Rosalyn RainDancer again this year. Rosalyn, thank you so much for being here again for our second summit.
Hi, Sarah, and hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be back and be part of the summit again. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and I'm super excited to dive into your wheel of sustainable success. But first, I'd like to introduce you a little bit to those of the people that are listening that don't remember you from last year or weren't here before. So Rosalyn is a success coach, but specifically, she's been specializing lately in BIPOC leadership, business, and entrepreneurs and executives. And if you're not familiar with the term BIPOC, that's Black, Indigenous, people of color. And I really think that's great, Rosalyn, that you're supporting specifically those communities, because I don't know if there's more of a need there, or, I think that it's great to have that expertise and have that specific level of support. So congratulations on niching there, but I also understand you're open to helping other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to, just mention that a little bit. This is a fairly new thing. Like, I never really specialized in BIPOC leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs before. And it wasn't that I didn't coach them before. I've always coached like a diversity of, like different industries and people from different backgrounds. But lately I just, felt called to serve them more. And at the same time, I also work with non-BIPOC folks and allies.
Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that a little bit. And so I'd like to just share a little more of your kind of formal bio. And then I'm wondering, Rosalyn, if you would maybe share more of your story, what kind of brought you to being where you are today.
Sure.
So what jumped out for me from Rosalyn from your bio was really how she's a leadership business success coach, that she's guiding BIPOC entrepreneurs, like we described already, but helping them start or grow the business or career of their dreams, along with a lifestyle that they love, which I think is really important, having both, not just one or the other. And another piece that jumped out was that Rosalyn's specialty is guiding and supporting people undergoing periods of birth, growth, and death transitions by introducing tools, training, and strategies to navigate the uncertainty with clarity, confidence, and resilience. And why I really wanted to mention that is I believe that maybe you can share us more about this in your topic today, but this whole birth, growth, and death transition can happen in life, and it can happen in seasons and different sort of phases. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about more of that from you. And then Rosalyn, of course, is just what I really appreciated about you when you were here with our summit last time is really your connection to kind of that soul, spirit, a divine essence aspect of ourselves, and integrating that into our leadership approach instead of leaving that piece out, because I think it's an integral piece for people, regardless of what that looks like, to be able to be our full thriving selves. So
yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, I definitely one of my favorite topics. And and I know the title of the interview today is The Wheel of Sustainable Success, and that really touches on what you were mentioning, just with regard to, so like in my personal journey, the way I grew up and working with clients, something that I've learned in I guess in the last few decades, you could say, is that like success is not really a straight line, right?
mm-hmm.
So it's not linear, and we go through periods and times of maybe we're sort of, really thriving and hitting our goals, and we feel like we're on top of the world. And then there are times when we start to kind of maybe plateau a little bit and kind of, sink down to like more the valleys, and maybe you start questioning what we're doing, or and just life happens. There's all these other life transitions that affect the way we show up at work. Things like illness. I think we're still recovering from this like global pandemic. Things like that. Health related, relationship related, like a separation or divorce, or anything to do with our children. families and things like that. And so more than ever, I feel it's important to I I want to say, like, I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't. It's actually easier. So redefine like what success looks and feels like. And that's really what
Mm.
the Wheel of Sustainable Success is all about, which
Oh, okay.
actually happened to have developed during the COVID pandemic, just in response to people, I think it forced us, like as a whole society, to really look at, like, what's working and what's not working. And I
Mm.
think collectively we came to this realization that sort of the traditional way, or the way we've been kind of conditioned, that that came out of probably like post World War II, right? And kind of more like the industrial age, and the whole, even the way we structured our work, like, is the 9 to 5 really, like, does it even make sense, and
Mhm.
things like that. And you might have heard, or maybe some of our listeners might have heard of this whole great resignation that's happening. So a lot of people
Mhm.
are leaving their jobs, or closing their businesses. And I think we're all asking, like, what now and what's next. So
Mm.
what I
Absolutely.
feel like this framework, I wanted to it is a good time to introduce it, because it's kind of this, um I think it's a new metric that we can use to measure how we're doing,
Mm.
not just in the achievement sense, but like how well we are, like, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and how we're doing in our relationships and the community at large. Like, what contributions are we making? So.
That sounds great and makes me want to just jump right in. So I'm not sure if there's anything else you want to cover, Rosalind, before we actually look at the wheel, and you can talk to us about how that works.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think what I want to say about this wheel is a little bit about sort of how, what inspired me to create it, like beyond,
Mhm.
in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the sort of life-changing experiences that I've had was, learning and practicing from the indigenous tradition of what's called the medicine wheel. So a lot of
Mhm.
indigenous cultures around the world use some version of this. You may have seen or have been exposed to a different version, but medicine wheels kind of, they all look similar. The directions might be different, and the meaning of each direction might change, but it's definitely inspired by the medicine wheel. And the medicine wheel was passed on to me as a teaching
Mhm.
from the Quechuan tradition, which are the descendants of the Incan Empire in South America. So I want to take a moment to honor um, the origins of that. And I'm basically kind of using, you could, in a sense, sort of like adapting
Mhm.
this skill that I've learned, so passed on from my teacher, because I've integrated it sort of like internally, and I apply it myself, the tools and teachings in my life and business. And so I've kind of adapted it and created this framework that I feel is a lot more, like I said, holistic and integrated, that really balances the different aspects of business. So what I mean by that is, like, there's the strategy. I think we're all really familiar with that. But then there's like the soul, right? And then
Mm.
there's the systems and structures, which is really important. But then there's a kind of like, there's a way in which you kind of like, gotta like just surrender to things and like let things flow. So it's like,
Mm.
yeah, and,
Mhm.
and that's where I think that, when we use this framework in our visioning as leaders, when we use it as a tool for mindful goal setting, or even just a way to kind of do a little check in with yourself, it's like, where am I, like, and there are times and seasons in our business or career that we're kind of like heavy, or heavy on one side of the wheel, because you're really
Mm. Mhm.
side, either, just based on necessity, or you're trying to balance yourself out, and that's like completely okay. But you could always sort of like zoom back out, out of our everyday, and look at, okay, like where am I at? So I encourage everyone, if you're listening, whether like during the summit or even afterwards, if you purchase your all access pass,
Right. Yes.
you,
Yeah.
is like, as you're listening to this framework, I encourage you to either get a printout, which I'll provide how to do that later on at the end, is how you can download the framework. Or all you can do is take a piece of printer paper 8.5 by 11 and to fold into 4 quadrants. And as you're listening to me go through each of the directions and the pillars, you can just jot down some ideas or insights, or sort of inspired actions that come to you, how you might want to, course correct or pivot each
Oh,
area of your business or leadership.
that's a great idea, Rosalind. I like that. So instead of just listening and taking in the information, actually use it as an opportunity for reflection and almost a little mini workshop while they're listening. So I love that idea. That's a great approach. And I know that really you have used this wheel with yourself personally and some of your clients, but I can also see how it will help everybody listening, really, like you're saying, that will help with shifting from stress and burnout and overwhelm to really connecting with that purpose, wellness, and sustainability. And that the word of the sustainability part of the sustainability success wheel really, I think, is crucial, because we can all get success for a short period of time, perhaps at the expense of other areas of our lives. But to have that sustainable success, I think, that's what winning feels like to me. True, like satisfaction, right, is having an ongoing success. So I'd love to hear more about this. So I don't know if you'd like to pull up the image for us on your side of the screen.
Yeah.
And then I'm excited to hear, I guess, an introduction about it for sure, and let people take notes as they're listening along.
So I just pulled up the wheel. I sometimes call this the wheel for short. The official name, of course, is the Wheel of Sustainable Success, but I might refer to the wheel. Sometimes I call it the Wheel of Success, so I kind of use it interchangeably. And so I just invite everyone to take a moment to, just take in the wheel and just notice how it lands, not just like with your eyes, but with your heart, with your mind. And, instead of zeroing in on the text, which is usually what the first thing we do here in North America, I want to just notice the shape or the shapes, because there's more than one shape. And, and I want to bring your attention to the 4 directions, which is foundational to any medicine wheel. So you'll notice there's a cross in the middle, and then there's circles surrounding the cross. And the 4 directions are at the top and bottom and left and right. The first direction, if I may go ahead and just kind of like dive right in, Sarah.
Yes, please do. I'm just listening, listening and absorbing. So yes, please take it wherever you want to take us there, Rosalyn.
Dive right into it, because yeah. So the first direction, really, I want to bring everyone's attention to the north, which is at the top. Right? So I'm actually just gonna zoom in here. Don't worry, I'll bring it back. So
great.
You're losing the rest of it. It's all good. And I might kind of just do this. Right?
Okay. Yeah, that looks great. Nice and easy to read.
Yes. So it's at the very, very top. And the north direction is also called, I give kind of each direction a name. And so I call it like the soul. And so the north direction is really associated with the soul. And each direction also has an element attached to it. And there's a kind of like an affirmation. So this is the element of fire. And the affirmation is I'm whole. And the soul direction really calls us to align with the fire of our soul purpose and sacred.
Lovely.
So, this is really about, how like, more and more, I think we're now aware that, sometimes maybe doing something and we're doing it because maybe we think we should, or our parents thought it was a great idea, or our spouses thought we should do it, or it's like somehow, you just kind of fell into it and you were in love with it at some point, but then you fell out of love with it. So, for many reasons, like we may not feel like we're completely sort of you could say, on fire what we're doing, which means like we're excited and passionate about it. So this is a direction where I start here because this is really about either birthing or rebirthing and building or rebirthing your business or leadership career from like a really deep place inside of you. I mean, some in our society, we kind of call it like our soul's purpose or calling. Because when you do this, I truly believe that when you are connected to your purpose, then your work kind of has its own success trajectory. You don't have to kind of like figure out a whole lot. I mean, there's some things you have to figure out, but when you were really connected, sort of, from that sort of deep soul purpose calling, then I believe that it wants to fulfill itself as a success, and then your job is simply to nurture it and make sure that it's kind of like gardening. There's a seed, and the seed actually has its own sort of intelligence. It wants to kind of sprout and grow and grow and grow. And so your job is just simply to be a gardener.
I love that. And that's so different than the trying to make it happen or force it to happen at a certain pace, so
Exactly.
and nurturing is a great word.
Exactly. And sort of some of the key pieces that I want to cover for the North is if the whole idea, like, I happen to come from a more sort of, like I think spirituality and is really important to bring into our work lives. Even if you're not, like, a pastor or some kind of, like a monk or something, right? It's super important. But if it feels kind of too like out there for you, it's totally good. Because this direction or pillar is also about getting back to basics. So what I mean by that is this is about caring for your health and well-being. So optimizing health and wellness is, I put in here, is because like without health and wellness, then I don't think we have anything. And this is about like checking in with yourself, like, how is my health and wellness? And, what are some decisions that I'm making or not making that is affecting my health and wellness? So this is where you kind of, just take a look at that. And because with your sort of being well connected with your soul purpose and sacred gifts, which is the gifts that you kind of like bring with you when you're born. And then, optimizing, caring for your well-being. To me, this also means doing what's necessary to heal your heart and nervous system. So healing kind of falls into this category as well. I think, in this way, you kind of form a really, really rock solid foundation so that the seeds of success they can kind of like be planted somewhere, because otherwise without the foundation, it kind of, it's pretty shaky, right? And that's when it can be fully sustainable.
Well, and I can see, I found in my own self and my own kind of coaching is that if our body and minds aren't well, then that creative fire can't thrive. It can't go naturally. It's almost it's constrained or whatever by our level of wellness, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And I know this is true, like from your coaching as well. And I also am fully aware that it's easier said than done. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I think we kind of know it mentally, but it's like one thing to know it like in our minds and another thing to really apply. So just encourage everyone to sort of, to be honest with yourself, with regard to this area, and do one or two things this coming year that's really addressing your foundation and making sure it's as solid as it can be.
So those that are listening and taking notes, with this, that would be your recommendation here, is to pick one or two things over the year to focus on this area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm going to zoom out here because I'm going to move towards, so the way we work with the wheel is we go from the north to the top. We move counterclockwise. So I don't know if I'm actually going the right direction based on the camera here, but we're moving counterclockwise. So what that means is we're moving to the next direction, which is the west right here. So I'm going to zoom in. So beautiful thing about the wheel, they all kind of like all directions or pillars. I kind of talk about 4 pillars is kind of the same thing. They all work together, as a whole. So the West is really about balancing, like when we're aligned to our purpose, sometimes we can be really we can feel like we're kind of like a fountain of ideas. Like, oh my gosh, I'm connected, I know exactly what I'm doing. And this is like all that I'm going to do. And we get really kind of passionate. So the West is really about, I couple it with the word strategy. So if the North is the soul, the West is the strategy. And so this is about balancing the flow of creative ideas with the right aligned strategy so that you can bring it into form.
Very important. Okay.
Yes. And so water is an element. So if you're familiar with the 5 elements, water is an element for flow and creativity. And equally important is developing your direction, your structure, and container. So I kind of call all of these things strategy, so that your sole purpose can take shape. And because without it, water just gonna go how it goes. But but water is essential for creating wealth. And one of the key things I want to mention about this direction is that super interesting. I don't know if you were familiar with it before, Sarah. It's something that I've only learned recently is the etymology of the word wealth actually comes from wheel. So
okay.
W-E-A-L, right? Like the first part of wealth, which means wound.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yes. And I was very excited to learn this because it kind of like confirms what I always have known, and kind of, which is one of my, the key approaches to my coaching. So I really believe that creating wealth, whatever it is to you, for some people, it's like, a lot of money. For others, the wealth of time. For others, is a wealth of freedom or support or whatever it is. It is our birthright to create wealth. And I fully believe that wealth comes from us, like truly like healing from our wounds, like, from our whatever upbringing, or maybe recently, or from past years, and transforming them into, your gifts of service, whatever it is. So, and when you give your gifts, which kind of relates back to like what are your sacred gifts, right? So when we give our gifts, then we receive abundance in return. So, and I thought that was very appropriate to kind of just anchor into this direction, because, strategy, it's easy to kind of, like download something or listen to, but I think when we kind of couple that with, I'm kind of like the reason why we're doing what we're doing, then it becomes more powerful. This is also the direction where we pay attention to sales and marketing. I kind of call it like vibrational. So it's not just sort of like what you can kind of like strategize from your head, but really like, well, what is aligned with like you and how you want to express, and what is aligned with your market or your audience. So it's really paying attention to the vibrational aspect of it. And this is also the direction where you want to look at, well, what are the business planning tools and strategies? What is the consistent actions I'm taking weekly, monthly, and annually, so that, I can bring my creative ideas to life. That's you're not just, you know, you're not just like doing everything under the sun, but you're choosing certain things and then you're carving out the time and space and consistency to make them happen.
So I can see how this builds on that first piece of the soul aspect of the fire and the inspiration and the ideas, then with the structure of the strategy there to help bring it to life. That sounds crucial.
So that was a little bit more, I want to say, if you're familiar with the masculine and feminine side of, our beingness, and in business as well, there's always a masculine and feminine. So this is a more masculine side of business. And so now we're going to move on to the third direction, which is at the very bottom. South. Makes sense, right? The north is the top and then south is the bottom. And it also makes sense. Let me just magnify this a little bit. It also makes sense the south is connected to the element of the earth. Because the more grounded we are, the more we're connected to the earth, right? The more we're trying to kind of like get connected to our soul, like we tend to kind of like connect with, the more sort of the cosmic things and, the heavens, so to speak. So equally important is that we're grounded in support and systems.
Okay.
And this is the what this direction is called. And this direction is really about making sure that we have the right support and systems to really sustain what it is we're creating. So a lot of us may have, I know a lot of my clients have this, and also for you, Sarah, maybe your clients in your community, they have these like amazing visionary like ideas, right? Like a way in which maybe it's never been done before. And usually these visionary ideas take time. They take time to create and build. So in this direction, we want to pay attention to and look at, well, do I have the right support? Have the right systems to actually like uphold, like, an infrastructure. Another word for systems, I guess, is infrastructure, as interchangeably used. Do I have the right infrastructure to actually support and sustain what I'm trying to do? And so equally important, even if you're at the very beginning of something, this is still important to think about, and one of my favorite teachings from this direction is about types of support. So looking at not just in terms of like people, when you think support, we usually think, oh, like, human resources.
Sure. Yeah.
We're having the people, right? And that's one form of support. But there's actually, I'll share the link to the full article, and people can go and read the article as well. But in the article, I talk about actually 5 types of support. There's people, of course, but there's also the support of space and time. So like physical location. There's financial support, so make sure you have that, like funding, maybe, loans, in-kind donations, etc. Your own sort of like shareholder capital. There's operational structures and systems, so how you actually run your company or organization. So for example, like SOPs and things like that. Social capital is a form of support, so your family and friends, your community, and believe it or not, I consider social media followers social capital.
Yes. Well, it's our community.
Yes. And then the last form of support is emotional or spiritual. So some of us have animals and pets. We have our nature, prayer, meditation. So that's a type of support. So I just talk about like there's more than one form of support that you can kind of like access and leverage.
That's great. I mean, I appreciate you listing them, because I think there's always more support we can add in, so that is a great opportunity to really just kind of pause and reflect to see where we can improve this area.
Mhm. Yeah. And if you are feeling like, if you're listening, you feel like, oh my gosh, that's like so much, it's all good. This wheel is designed for you to go back to it over and over. So if like you feel like you didn't get something this time around, don't worry. It's designed to be reusable, like very, very sustainable and eco-friendly.
Love it. Well, because I can see, today something will come up, and then tomorrow or a month or a year or two from now, I could imagine other things would come up.
Yes.
So that's why I appreciate that this whole system being able to look at each aspects of ourselves and identify where there's room to grow or get assistance with them and all of that. So this is great.
Change, yeah, for sure. So I'm going to zero out because we're moving to the last but not the least direction, which is the east. Can you still see? I feel like it's
yes,
on one
it's
side.
good. I've just moved the image window over the other side, so it's not in the way.
So the last direction is the east. So we've kind of gone from the north, then we go counterclockwise to the west. We've gone to the south, going from like the fire of a soul purpose direction, allowing the creative flow of ideas to come through, and yet making sure they've got a strategy and container. You give them some direction, and then we make sure we have the right support and systems to really, allow it to like really grow and bloom. And then we're gonna go and move to the east, which is personally my favorite. Well, they're all great. But is actually my favorite direction, because this is a direction that is representative of surrender, hence the name. And east air is the element attached to the east direction. It is the lightest element, and this is actually the direction of love. And this is my favorite direction because I don't know about you, but I haven't yet to see a success plan that includes love.
Interesting.
And the reason this is so is because like I'm sure we'd heard stories, your own, or maybe in the movies or whatnot, that like there's so many people out there that are driven by sort of, yeah, just like the fame and fortune and success and status, and like, but then at the end of the day, they get to the top and they feel like, like empty-handed, or like, brokenhearted, or just like, they're missing something crucial, and that is like love. So love, I feel, is the journey to creating success. What I've learned, surprisingly, is actually deepening one's capacity to love. And I'm not talking about sort of like Hollywoodized love. I'm talking about like kind of deep sort of like self-love, self-acceptance, right? Which is like what all the spiritual traditions teach, which then leads to your full self-expression. But this is also about making sure that you make time and space for like, authentic, soulful relationships that really nourish your heart. This is the direction that where you want to cultivate belonging and community, which is so important when you're trying to, especially when you're a visionary, especially when you're trying to achieve something, or like change the world. A lot of us want to do that too. I think it's important, especially when you are aiming high, to have people and things in your life that remind you of sort of, yeah, what really matters, and who in some ways like have no connection to like the big things you're doing, can be very grounding. And then, last but not the least, in this direction, I just and I think it's so important, not think, but like I believe it's so important, when you've done all this work, getting in touch with your purpose and making sure you have a right strategy and you have like systems of support, let's bring it back to like the heart of why we strive for the things we do in the first place.
Mm.
Is our legacy. And so I want to bring it to that. And it's not just about what you have accomplished, but like how well you have cared and loved and whose lives you touched and how well you'll be remembered. So
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah, I just encourage people just for this direction. One of my favorite exercises is to write your obituary.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then because then you get kind of like it's front and center. It's like, how do you want to be remembered? Then you can go about and live out your legacy that way.
Oh, that's beautiful. And just hearing you talk about this, it just makes me just feel, my heart feels warm, and I think it can be easy to get unbalanced if we put, like you said, all of our attention in one of these four pillar directions. Yet at the same time, it's natural sometimes for one area to get maybe a little bit more attention than the other. So I'm wondering if maybe you can kind of bring it all together here now that we've kind of looked at all four of the directions. How does someone take this going forward, I guess? Because there's a lot of information here, and I've been very inspired listening to all of it. So I guess what would be the next step, and then we'll wrap up with some wonderful invites and how to find out more.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you and everyone, first of all, for just being present to the teachings. And like I said, if you are feeling like it's a lot and can be like, overwhelming, don't worry. It's designed for you to use like, over and over again. And my best recommendation is to actually print this out. So step number one, print this out, and you can find this framework as a free download on my website. So www.raindancerhome.com.
Great, and I'll link that for everybody as well. Yeah.
It will pop up and it says Wheel of Sustainable Success, so you won't miss it.
Great.
So you can, first step is just to download it. And then feel free to replay this and really just be present to not only like the visual, but what I'm saying and like what comes to you. And like I said, like one or two things in this direction. So for example, if you feel like your health and wellness could use some work, then one or two things, right? Even just one thing that you're doing, what's one thing you're doing this quarter? And just use each direction as kind of more of a guide instead of like something you got to do everything all at once.
Yeah, I think that's a really good takeaway, because I think you could easily dive into each topic, each direction, and go really deep with them, which is why I think this is such a powerful framework, but also making it manageable, so it can actually make a positive impact in our lives. I really appreciate you summarizing it that way, to take one or two from each area.
Yes, absolutely. And for just, quick example, for a lot of my clients, and I'm sure for you too, Sarah, this support and system can be a really huge thing. Like it's like, kind of like, wow, I need to, kind of like improve that. And so, but even with that, one or two things, maybe it is your goal to expand your team this year and just like work on that,
Right.
Right. And then a lot of these things interrelate. So as you're expanding your team, what you'll find is the structures and systems have to shift. So, and it's okay if you're spending a lot of time in one particular direction. The other thing that is useful, just a quick tip, is that you can use this tool as a like percentage of time and energy you're spending. For example, like this year, maybe you feel like you're good with the sole purpose part. So it's like, I want to devote only 20% of my year, on the north direction, but I'm really wanting to work on my support and system. So I'm spending 50% of my time and energy working on that this year. So it's like a little pie for yourself. And that makes it kind of more practical.
I like that idea. And that takes then sort of the reflection piece and takes it into action and implementation through intention that way. So this is beautiful. And Rosalyn, I'm sure we could probably have a great conversation more about all of this, but this has been a good introduction for sure. And also, I know you have your wonderful summit coming up, which I believe you're going to talk more about this. So I wonder if you can tell us about that.
Yeah, so another way that you can kind of, continue to stay connected to this framework and use it as a tool and let it sort of guide your business or leadership growth is through. So this actually is a companion. I'm going to call it a companion summit, and so the whole summit will be devoted to this framework, and it's going to be over 4 days. Each day covering each direction or pillar. It's called the Wheel of Success Summit. I mean, very
Sounds great.
very original name. So that's happening March 27th to 31st, 2022. So a month from now, about a month anyways. And you can get free access at wheelofsuccess.ca. And there, I'm sure, Sarah, you'll provide.
I will link that as well. Absolutely.
But I totally invite you to check it out. There will be speakers and experts speaking to, a lot of these sort of principles, practices, and areas of mastery that I share today. And they will be able to dive deeper into each one than probably I can. So I invite you to come on out, sign up, and continue learning and growing.
That sounds great, and a great way to take this introduction today to the Wheel of Sustainable Success and dive deeper into it. So thank you for sharing that invite with everybody. And did you have anything else you wanted to share with everybody today before we wrap up? I know either final thoughts or any other resources you'd like to point them to.
I just want to, acknowledge everybody here. I think, you're all here because you are, wanting to align with your soul purpose, and you are wanting to up-level your leadership, and you're wanting to do better. And I just commend you for that. And I hope you enjoyed the rest of the summit. And again, if you wanted to download the framework, it is available for free at my website, which is www.raindancerhome.com. And I encourage you to get the all access pass because I believe, I can't quite remember, but one of the tiers, I am offering sort of complimentary clarity calls. So if you want to connect with me one-on-one, that's a good opportunity.
Oh, fabulous. That's going to be a great bonus for the VIP All Access Pass people. What a great opportunity to dive deeper with you into this whole personalized approach then versus this general approach you provided us today. So thank you, Rosalyn. That's going to be a wonderful bonus for everybody. So I will be sharing all of the All Access Pass details throughout the summit. You've probably heard about it already. So thank you, Rosalyn, for that. So that, I guess, brings us to the conclusion today of our session. We have covered a lot of detail today, Rosalyn, and I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us the origins of what inspired you to create this wheel in the first place, and then how beautifully it comes together. So I really appreciate you taking the time today and being here to really share this tool with everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And I can't wait to hear the rest of the summit interviews.
Oh, I think it's been amazing so far. So I'm so glad that you've been able to be part of it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.